It's Bunny Day! Which can only mean one thing. We are going to be making the real life version of the Bunny Day dress, and I am so excited to actually make this dress. It might not go right, but I am going to give it my all. And let's get into today's dressmaking video. So the fabrics that I'm going to be using is this hot pink for the skirt, this for the earth egg, this one for the sky egg, this green for the grass egg, this one for the rock egg, this one for the wood egg, and lastly this one for the water egg. I'm also going to be using this yellow for the bodice, and I have this really nice lace for the sleeves and around the bodice neck, which is just so cute. And then I have my fabric paints because we are going to be painting the egg design onto the skirt panels today. And oh my god, look at the colours. So we're going straight in with the circle skirt, so I will add the link to the website I used to find out my measurements. So I'm just going to draw the measurements to create my circle skirt here. I'm just going in with my little white chalk and the tape measure just to make sure I have the right size all the way across. And then I'm just going to quickly pin these pieces together just so that they don't move around as I cut them. And then I'm just going to join the dots to make sure we have a continual line, and then we're going to cut this. I love making circle skirts and how floofy they become. They're so pretty when they're done. I love circle skirts. I'm just going to pop this on my mannequin just to make sure it is the right length and it fits, and also to give it time to hang, just because circle skirts do drop sometimes. To create the panels, I've folded my fabric into thirds and then into half again, and it should give you 6 layers, and these will be the 6 pieces for your panels on top. And then I'm going to trace this onto my green fabric to get the first panel for the egg layer of the dress. Once I have that, I'm going to cut this out. And I'm going to place it on top of the pink layer just to see roughly how high I want it to come up so that we still have the pink showing. I'm going to fold this in half and trace the line onto it for the shape. And then I'm going to make sure it's folded properly, and then I'm just going to cut it along that line to create our egg piece. And I'm just going to place it on top just to make sure it looks right. So I'm just going to trace this piece onto the rest of the fabrics for the panels for the top layer of the skirt, and then we're going to cut them all out. So this one is the water egg, and we get to paint a lot of designs today, which I'm so excited for. Next we have the grass egg. This is just really repetitive, but once you get the hang of it, it's so easy to do as well. Just quickly trim it. I'm not too bothered about it being 100% neat because we are going to hem them, and we do lose a lot of fabric off the sides of these panels as well. So it's just a quick rough cutout of the shape. Onto the wood colour. I love this orange, it's so summery. And finally we have the earth egg, and this pink is the prettiest pink ever. Quickly just cut this along the bottom, and we have all of our little panels, and they look like such a cute rainbow flower. I'm going to pin this to the mannequin just to make sure they all fit. And then I'm going to pin them together as well just to figure out how much fabric we're going to lose off the sides. Pinning these to the mannequin is a long process, and I think I must have pinned myself a few times during this whole thing. I definitely had sore fingers by the end of the first day. And there they are, all together. So now we get to paint the panels, which was really time consuming but fun. So first we're going to start off with just working out how much fabric we don't need on the side, just so I can draw an outline so I don't have to waste time painting fabric that we're not actually going to use or see. It was about 2 inches that I took off the very bottom of the egg, and then I took an inch off the top for my waistband, and then I'm just going to quickly draw the designs using my switch. Once I have the design pretty much drawn out, it's time to move on to painting. I mixed the paints with water to begin with, but it caused the paint to actually start bleeding outside of my outline for each shape that I was painting. So in the end, I made the paint a little bit thicker, which it comes with pros and cons with these paints. I've realised it's a bit more flexible if you add the water, but then you risk the chance of it bleeding. And if you do it too thick, the fabric becomes like paper. But in the end, we kind of have a happy medium. And this is the sky skirt almost done. Next, we're moving on to the earth egg. And this was really simple. It was hard to draw because I cannot draw stars to save my life. But in the end, it turned out really nicely once I hid all of my mistakes and lines that were just all over the skirt by the time I'd finished drawing my design up. This has got to be one of my all-time favourite egg designs. I love the purple mixed with the blues, and I did it on a cream background because it looks kind of off-white in the actual game, so I decided to go with cream for my actual fabric instead of white, and I'm so glad I did. Next up we have the wood egg, which was very simple. It was just a few circles, and then I just had to paint them, so this was definitely the quickest design to do, and I think it turned out really well, and I'm so glad I went for the brighter orange because it just adds a bit more brightness to the dress. Okay guys, it is the next day now, and here is the skirt. That's the back of it. I just realised she's facing the wrong way. But last night, after I finished recording, I managed to get these 2 panels finished. The green one took ages and is very stiff, like paper. So I'm trying to decide what to do with this. But I'm thinking about adding like a tulle underskirt from Amazon onto the underneath of this when it's worn, just to give it a bit of poof. So it should help it to look more egg-like rather than looking so un-egg-like, if that's the best way to describe it. And then let me show you the front of the mannequin, and then this is the front of the skirt. So it's definitely coming along. I think the skirt I left hanging overnight, so I do need to go around and make sure it's all even, because I think one side has dropped, so I need to do that. We need to sew the panels together and then sew the hems on them, hem of the bottom skirt, attach them together, and then the skirt is pretty much ready to go. So for the sleeves and the bodice, I went through my patterns that I already had to find something that would work really well for the dress and the style. So I actually found the first pattern to be the perfect one for the sleeves, which is this one. It has these really cute small puff sleeves, and I decided that this was definitely the pattern for the sleeves that we were going to go for. And this is the pattern that I'm going to use for the bodice. It is a lot shorter on this actual pattern, but there's nothing stopping me from extending it down to the waist. But it has the princess lines that we need, the princess seams, sorry. So it's going to be perfect for this pattern, I think. So I cut my sleeve pattern out of this one, and then I was already making this other dress, so I'm going to use the pattern pieces I already have cut out of fabric as my pattern pieces. So first up, we're going to trace around these bodice pieces to create the back piece. I'm just going to do it in one big piece. I always work with really big pieces when I make my dresses so that I have a lot of fabric to kind of play with so that I can shape them. So we have our back panel. Because we have a zip going right up the middle, I am going to do this into 2 pieces. So it's time to cut this out. So that's all cut out, and I'm just going to cut the fold as well because we do need it in the 2 pieces. And then for the bodice pieces, I'm going to trace around this piece of fabric and just extend it slightly just so that we get a little bit more of the bright yellow on the bodice. I've extended this down and it's time to cut this out as well. So I'm just going to pin this to my mannequin. As you can see, there is a lot of fabric here and we definitely cut a lot of this fabric off. And it is a little bit too long as well, but I was just shaping it just to see how it would look on the mannequin once it was all pinned in place and it was all where it needed to be. Moving on to the front of the bodice, and I'm just trying to figure out how this is going to sit so that we can get that middle panel piece in. So I'm just going to quickly draw a big rectangle of this, cut it out and pin it in place just to see how this is going to look. This isn't perfect and I do find another pattern piece to kind of improve the shape of this eventually, but for now I just wanted to get it pinned on so I had all of the pieces that I needed for the dress. So now we're going to cut out the sleeves. I love making these puffy sleeves. I've made quite a few for my dresses up to now and I usually just use a pattern and extend it, but this time I actually stuck to the pattern because I didn't want them to be too overpowering. I didn't want the sleeves to be the main focus of the dress. I wanted the skirt to stand out a lot more. We're just going to cut this out and then I'm going to cut it out on the actual fabric as well. So I'm going to use the cream layer as an underlayer, and then the green and the blue are going to sit on top so that there's something between my arm and the painted fabric, just for a bit of comfort. So this is what we have up to now. So I've cut the top layer bodice pieces out. They're very rough, but I usually just do rough cuts anyway and then just tidy it up as I go along. It's just how I do my dressmaking. I usually make up my own patterns and then cut the fabric just a little bit big so that I can like shape it on my mannequin. And then I have the sleeves cut out. I've just pinned them just to get a rough idea of the volume you get from the sleeves. And I think all we need to do now is kind of play with the bodice, get that to the correct shape that it needs to be in the correct length because it's currently folded over at the bottom, and then I can cut out like an underlayer, like a lining layer, but I might do the next lot of fabric as a top layer and just use this as like the lining, but it's looking really good. And then we just need to paint the sleeves and then everything should be ready to be sewn together, hemmed and whatnot. I do need to do the little yellow sleeve bits here for the arms, but I want to see how these sleeves look first when they are officially stitched and sewn together, and then I can figure out the length of the sleeve that I need for the arms. But it looks really good. It's slowly coming together. We are finally on our last day of painting. This paint really smells. It doesn't smell as such, but When you are so close to it like I was, because I was literally lying on the floor while I was painting these, I was just getting a lot of paint fumes and it definitely caused a few headaches. But yeah, the last day of painting, there's not much to be said about this because it's basically the same as doing the panels for the skirt. I just drew an outline, drew my designs on top, and then just painted them. Found my old pattern that I made for a similar dress style in a box, so I'm going to use these to cut out the bodice pieces a little bit better for the shape. I tend to use wrapping paper that I don't want from the previous Christmases to make patterns. I find it's better than throwing wrapping paper away because you can't recycle wrapping paper in the UK. I don't know about everywhere else, but you can't recycle it. You have to actually put it in the actual bin, and I find it so wasteful and bad for the environment, so I always just recycle the stuff that I don't want to make patterns. So I'm just going to trace all of these pieces onto some more yellow fabric for the top layer. So I'm going to use the ones that I already cut out and then cut out again as my lining layer for the bodice. And then this layer I'm cutting out now is going to be the top layer because they will be a little bit neater. They won't be as wonky as the other ones. They all work, it still works, it all turns out fine. But for the top layer, I just like to have them looking a little bit more tidier. So we're just going to trim all these out. There was a lot of lines on this fabric because I drew them out and then remembered I needed a waistband, so I had to readjust my fabric. Day 4 and the last day of making this dress, and it was literally just pushing all of my fabric through the sewing machine. So here we are sewing all of the panels together for the skirt. There is paper stuck underneath the skirt because the paint kind of dried and it was like super glue. I could not peel the paper off the back of the paint to save my life. It was stuck, and I mean stuck. So my dress has paper stuck to it. But it is what it is. I didn't want to let that stop me from finishing this dress, so I peeled off what I could and then we just sewed it together. And that green panel is the worst because I literally have a full piece of A4 stuck to the side of my skirt. Now we're just going to go around and hem all of the panels to create that nice egg shape at the bottom. I think I'm going to try and make a summer dress using these panels in the future, minus the paint, because I don't want to be walking around with very stiff fabric on my dress with paper stuck underneath, but I think this is going to make such a cute summer dress. Think fairy romantic inspired. Oh my god, I need to do that. Hemming this took quite a while because there was just so much fabric and it wasn't just a simple circle skirt, it was in and out, so I had to maneuver the fabric perfectly to get that hemline. It turned out really well in the end, it just took a lot of time to actually get the shape right for this hem. And we're on to the last panel that needs hemming, and the top layer of the skirt is officially finished. We just need to attach it to the circle skirt. Next we have the actual circle skirt, which is really easy to do. I don't use pins. I'm sorry if you are a dressmaker and I've just offended you, but I just try not to use pins because I've had so many pins fly off mid-sew, so I just prefer to slowly push it through my sewing machine and just keep my fingers in the positions they need to be to stop the fabric from over hemming or under hemming. I like to just get it done. And I think we're almost done with this. Yes, we are done. Now we need to sew all of the bodice pieces together. The bodice pieces took the longest because, especially for the curved pieces that I actually pinned together to get that curve, it was so time consuming to get them to maneuver through my machine correctly and to avoid catching the fabric underneath. It turns out really well though, it's just a very time consuming pattern to do for me. Add the back panels to this as well, so the bodice is all connected and then it's open at the back for the zip. Zips are the worst thing for me to sew. I can sew everything, but when it comes to zips, that's more than likely the point I want to quit making a dress. I just get so irritated with zips. Now we're just gonna attach the two layers together with the lace inserted in between. So you have the lining, a bit of lace, and then the top layer, and it creates that really nice lacy neckline of the dress. And then I'm just going to top stitch the lining so that everything sits perfectly when you wear it and it all holds up and you don't end up with like a seam hanging down. Now I'm just going to sew some elastic into the sleeves. I've stitched the lining pieces to the sleeve already as well, just so that the fabric was a little bit thicker, and I had my lining layer there so that there was no irritation on my arms once I put this on. Elastic is the funniest thing to try and sew because usually I let go of it and it goes flying across the room. So I made sure to stitch the end of it first and then just hold on to it very tight with my other hand. Stitch the seam, and then it's time to stitch the sleeves to the actual bodice. I pinned the sleeves to the bodice and my pins were coming out everywhere. There was literally like 6 pins on the floor after I'd finished one sleeve. Onto the second sleeve, and we're just gonna struggle pushing this through because it was covered in paint as well, so my poor sewing machine definitely earned a break after this dress. And then I went ahead and stitched the top layer of the skirt to the top layer of the bodice. I wasn't going to add the waistband because I was running low on fabric, so I decided to use what little yellow fabric I had to make more like an attachable belt rather than an actual waistband to my dress, and it turned out really well. So now I'm attaching the circle skirt to the lining of the bodice, and then all I need to do is make the waist belt, the sleeves and the bow, add the zipper, and this dress is done. And I do this off camera because it was just a few quick bits that I needed to do, but oh my god, it's finished. And she's finally done. Oh my god, I have a bunny day dress. And she may not be perfect, but she's mine and I love the dress that I've made. Am I ever going to wear this in real life? Probably not. Do I need a bunny day dress? Absolutely not. But I have one now and oh my god, she's so pretty. I love my bunny day dress. I cannot wait to do more Animal Crossing in-game dresses. There's so many that I like that I would love in my wardrobe, and I just need to start stretching my skills in my dressmaking, and then I can just attack any dress that I want, and we might as well jump into the grand reveal. Here is the finished dress.